You are listening to Plantastic Events podcast, episode number 10. Hey everyone, welcome to Plantastic Events. I'm your host, Noshin Panjani. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to help you plan your events with ease. Be sure to subscribe at stewjat.com and stay up to date. That's stewjat.com. Plus, you'll receive tons of resources, freebies, guides, and show notes. Thank you for joining, and now let's get into the show. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Noshin Panjani, and today our guest is Jim Cathcart. He is an entrepreneur, an award-winning motivational speaker, and an author. He is a TEDx presenter with over 1.25 million views, and his videos are on top 1% worldwide. He was inducted into the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame by Top Sales World magazine. He is also an author of 18 books, including the international bestsellers, The Acorn Principle, which I just started reading, by the way, the Motivation Handbook, and Relationship Selling. He has also delivered over 3,100 professional speeches around the world. I was just telling him, he is a crazy, busy man. And we are so very grateful to have you on this episode. I have watched a lot of your videos online, and I follow you on Twitter asking for some advice from time to time.
Thank you, Noshin.
Thank you. I wanted to know, first of all, how are you doing today, and how was your trip to China? I know you just, are you still there, or are you back?
No, I'm back, and I'm doing great today. I was in China for a lecture tour for 14 days.
Wow.
Took my wife with me. This was my third, 3.5, almost fourth year in China doing lecture tours for World Master Speakers Bureau out of Shanghai. And I was addressing 2,500 people for 2 hours a day, 2 days in a row.
Wow.
And then other groups, I did about 7 other presentations, plus a side cruise from Shanghai to Nagasaki, Japan, and back, and recorded 40 video lessons while on board the ship. And other than that, not much going on, except that I just released 2 new books in Mandarin and English.
What? How are you able to do so much?
Get other people to help.
Wow. It's a team effort, right?
Yep.
But I'm sure it's very busy, but it's also good work. I think you do incredible work. You help many people out there, including myself. I think just giving me the confidence to speak up and not be afraid. And I'm going to...
That's the thing, pardon me for interrupting,
Yeah,
but that's
no.
the thing that keeps me going, is knowing that what I'm doing is making life better for people. And if it
Exactly.
weren't, it would be a hollow existence. It's kind of like playing and singing to yourself.
Yeah.
If I've got an audience of 1, then I can grab my guitar and sing and play until the person goes away.
Right.
Or an audience of 1 million, doesn't matter. As long as somebody's getting value from what I'm doing, I'll keep going. And if nobody is, then it after a while, it's just an exercise in futility.
Exactly. You should use your natural abilities. You should use your skills that you have for the world out there. Share that, and having that chance, like what you've done, it's like phenomenal. And we're very thankful for you to do that and to provide that and share that with the world. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you, how did you start your career? How did you start, I guess, the whole becoming a motivational speaker and just joining this whole process?
Well, I was a government clerk, 26 years old, and it was a natural thing for me to do.
Ah. All right. That's a shift in career.
Actually, it's the truth, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was 26 years old, living in Little Rock, Arkansas. And for the listeners that aren't American, that's the southern central part of the United States. And I was working for $525 a month, which is not much money at all. and newly married with a baby at home, no college
Wow.
degree, no money in the bank, no academic achievements or athletic achievements behind me. And I didn't know anybody that had any leverage. And one day I was listening to the radio to a show not unlike this podcast, and I heard the voice of a man named Earl Nightingale.
Earl
He was on
Nightingale.
900 radio stations back then,
What?
and he was considered the dean of personal motivation. So every day he had a 5-minute show that was inspirational. And I listened to it that day, and he said, if you will spend an extra hour, 1 hour, every day studying your chosen field, not just doing your work, but studying the field that you want to pursue. 1 hour a day, if you do that for 5 years, that's 1,250 hours, and
Wow.
that will make you a national expert in that subject. And I thought, wow,
Huh.
even I, little simple me, could do that. And I thought, what do I want to study? Well, it wasn't urban renewal, which was the agency I worked in.
Right.
And so I thought, I want to do what he's doing. But I'd never given a speech, and I knew nothing about motivation. So I just became a fanatical student, and I mean that in the textbook dictionary sense, fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
Fanatical student of personal development and applied psychology. And for 5 years, I spent every spare minute, every weekend hour, every hour I could carve out for myself, studying self development. Listening to
Yeah.
audio recordings, reading books, going to meetings where people seemed to know what they were talking about, interviewing people that seemed to have their act together. And within a year or two, I was leading training sessions that other people had designed. And then after doing 400 of those in 2 years for no pay after work,
Wow.
uh, 400 in 2 years. When I say fanatical, I mean fanatical. In 2 years, in the 1970s, I did 400 seminars and workshops
Oh my God.
teaching other people's material uh, for free to civic clubs and local groups and youth groups. And after 400 of those things, I really knew my stuff, and I had a lot of confidence too. And I started doing some of my own writing and started my own research. Ultimately bought a psychological research firm or partnered with them and became part owner. And then ever since then, I've done, as you said, 3,100 speeches around the world. I've been a full-time speaker and author since 1976,
Wow.
and been president of the National Speakers Association. And I've literally won every major award a professional speaker could get on the face of the earth.
You actually make me feel a lot better. I just recently,
Good.
I mean, I'm not even lying. It means a lot because only recently did I tell myself, you know what? I'm frustrated with something that it was like an event-related thing that we had to deal with. And I was like, we need to fix this. We need to figure out how to work on this. We made it into a business. And I was like, I turned around and I told my husband, I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And he's like, I don't
Yeah.
either. But you know what? We'll learn. We'll
Yeah.
skill build. We'll go through the whole process. We'll figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to make a change. But we know that a change is needed, that we're going to get involved. We're going to try. It doesn't matter how hard it is or how long it takes. We'll keep continuing and we'll keep pushing through. And then when I started my first podcast, I was like, I don't know the first thing about podcasting. I don't even know how to interview people, let alone standing behind a mic.
The beauty of what you're saying is that leads to a comma and then the insertion of, and therefore I will learn what I need to learn.
Exactly.
Develop the skills I need to develop, find the resources I need to find, endure the pain, discomfort, and awkwardness and fear that's part of the process of growing to a bigger place than I have been in the past. Your statement is absolutely spot on, consistent with my attitude when I was 26 years old. Today I'm 71.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That is impressive. I think your words of wisdom are actually helping me out here.
Goodness.
And definitely the nervousness is still there. I'm still thinking in my
Oh, yeah.
head, you know what? I don't know if this is going to fail, but I'll make it work somehow.
Well, you know, failure is interesting because failure is the only way for an unsuccessful attempt to become a failure
Right,
is if you stop trying or correcting.
right.
So if you stop trying or correcting, then it's a failure. If you keep correcting and learning and adjusting and trying again, it wasn't a failure. It was an unsuccessful attempt or a setback or a pause or something.
You're so right. Because, I mean, you will hit obstacles and sometimes you
Yeah.
will fall. But it's how you
I've
work
lost,
around that.
yeah. One venture I was into, I was betrayed by a colleague,
I'm so
and
sorry.
thank you. I had mortgaged my home to be in this venture with the guy, and one day found that he was getting everything and I was getting nothing, and I'd lost about $300,000, and I just had to
Oh,
take my injuries and walk away
oh,
and
man.
start fresh. And it took me a couple of years to rebound to the level of confidence I'd had before. But I didn't go through depression where I, looked for a bottle of alcohol or a drug or place to
Yeah,
hide. I just didn't have the energy that I had had prior to that because of the numbness of that blow.
yeah,
And I recovered. So,
exactly.
next, that's the winner's mantra. Kaboom, smashed in the face, kaboom, broke a leg, kaboom, lost all your money.
Yeah.
What do you say? You say next.
Next. I like
Yep.
that. I'm going to use that.
Good.
If I fall, if something happens, it's okay. What's going to
Yeah.
happen
And there's
next?
one more key word, and
Yeah.
also a very short word. Someone says, but you don't know how to do that, but you don't have any experience doing that, but you don't seem big enough or smart enough or fast enough or cool enough to do that. And you just look at them and smile and say, yet.
Yet. I like that. I'm going to use that. And the thing is, no one is born with certain skills. Well, okay. Not everyone is born with all kinds of skills and abilities. It's how
Nope.
you change yourself over time, right? Like you start to skill build. Not everyone is like a professional speaker. It took time to get there. But you know
Yeah.
what? I'm willing to give it that time. And I have patience. And I'm willing to try and not willing to give up. So if I just keep continuing, keep skill building, I know I'll make it there. It's just time.
That's a fact.
But I wanted to also let you know a lot of our listeners are event organizers. We also have quite a few people that not only organize the event, but also have to stand up and speak during large events. I
Sure.
know many people have come up to me and said, hey, I host these large events, but I hate standing up in front of a large crowd. And I'm able to, that like resonates with me too because I have anxiety.
Sure.
And in the same sense that they've told me that too, that they stand up there and they lose it. They don't know how to react, how to do anything, but they're organizing this whole event. And I know that you've recently published a book called You Are the Speaker.
Yeah, recently, meaning literally last week.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to
That's
have
my
to look
18th
into
book.
this.
It came out in Mandarin and English combined. So
Okay.
it's a 2-volume book, and that gives it enough space to have both of the languages side by side. And it's published in Shanghai. It'll be published in a year or so in the United States. But it's 53 lessons on how to be a successful speaker. And it's from my 43 years of full-time professional speaking and training. And by the way, I'm a former meeting planner, and I've been the chairman of a big multi-million-dollar event with thousands and thousands of people and several days of time span with hundreds of events involved,
Right.
lots and lots and lots of moving parts for the National Speakers Association. I've been organizer of events for everything from 3 people to hundreds and thousands
Wow.
of people. As a matter of fact, I was the event chair for the Boys and Girls Clubs in Thousand Oaks, California, back in 2005. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Library had acquired the plane that he used to fly on, Air Force One.
Yeah.
The entire Boeing 707 airplane, and they brought it to Thousand Oaks, and installed it at his library, and then built a pavilion around it and turned it into a meeting space. And in 2005, on October 25th, I think it was, we held the first public event ever held in that space. Nancy Reagan, his widow, had held a reception for her close friend and sponsors. And then we opened it up for the Boys and Girls Clubs event that I was chair of.
Yeah.
We had 409 people, a silent auction, a great big silent auction, and then the live event and banquet and all that. Raised $250,000 in one evening for the Boys and Girls Clubs. So I know what your event planner colleagues and listeners are going through. I have not only been there, I've been there in many, many, many forms.
Yeah.
And I published a program on audio years ago called What to Do When You're the Meeting Leader.
What to do
and it's how to lead meetings of all types.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Yeah, it's not on the market right now. I'm going to do it in print form as a book this coming year. But when I started out, I was awkward and embarrassingly bad at speaking to groups, and I learned through experience how to do it better. Had some wise and kind people say to me, "Jim, you've never been told how to do this, have you?" Yeah. You mean it shows? Yeah, it shows. Let me give you some tips. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
You're like, I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, and my son is director of human resources for the Four Seasons Hotel near where I live.
Wow.
And he has 600 employees, and he probably gives, I don't know, 7 or 8 presentations a week, and does not like to give presentations. But he engages the audience. He has a great time, and people love it when he's running a meeting.
Yeah.
So, it is a learnable skill, and you can get past your reluctance or awkwardness. So, things like You Are the Speaker, which has 53 lessons, they take the whole thing apart and show you what you can learn. For example, you can learn what to think about while your introducer is telling the group who you are. And you can learn what to say in your first couple of moments on stage. You can learn whether to use notes, how to use notes, when to use notes.
Right.
There's so many little things you can learn.
And I'm just going to give our listeners a quick, just a glimpse as to what I've seen from even one of your videos. If our listeners get a chance to see, or look you up. One of the things that I noticed, which was so interesting to me and just kind of almost jaw-droppingly cool, at least I thought it was really cool. I saw you on stage, and it's just the way that you captivated your audience. It was like you immediately engaged with them. You were able to get them that interaction. I could see them cheering, and there was this center stage type of environment with I don't even know how many people, but it was just the way that you came up on stage, and it was the way that you interacted with your audience then. It was just you could sense that immediate feeling, that there were no boundaries. There was you could feel your audiences, just whatever's going on, their existence, how they're reacting. I thought it was really cool. I haven't seen anything like that. That was pretty cool.
And you can go to YouTube, Jim Cathcart, or just go to Cathcart, CATHCART.com and see those videos free on my website.
Yeah. So please check them out. They're really interesting to watch. And just seeing how you go up on stage and how you're able to engage with everyone.
Well, one of the things, one of the things I do to make that happen is before every speech, in my head and heart, I say, Lord, help me be of value to these people.
Yeah.
I just want to be about helping them, not about me giving a speech, because it's not about me. It's not even about my material. It's about what they can benefit from by listening to me and following my advice. So when I get on stage, the first thing I do is look them all in the eyes and say, some kind of greeting, good morning, good afternoon. And if they don't respond, then I'll ask a question and raise my hand indicating they should raise theirs.
Yeah.
And that typically gets a response from them. And then I just launch into why my message today might be of value to them.
Right. I think that will help folks out too, just to be able to better engage. Do you have any other tips on how to improve engagement, especially if you're kind of new? I like the idea that you said, knowing that it's not about you, it's about your audience, being able to work with your audience in that sense. I think that would cut down, I know, my anxiety quite a bit. knowing that I don't have to be worried when I'm standing up there. All I have to know is that, can I share something valuable to all of them that's out there?
Well, number one is forget about getting an A. You know, don't try to come across with a good score.
Right.
Forget about score, forget about judgment, forget about that whole mindset, and just focus on how your message can help them.
Right.
So if I'm teaching a sales technique, I might walk to the front of the room like one of my heroes of the past, Zig Ziglar, did.
Mm-hmm.
I might walk to the front of the room, look at them, and say, "There's only 5 reasons why somebody won't buy from you today."
Mm-hmm.
They don't need it. They're not interested in it. They can't afford it. They don't have the authority to buy it, or they don't trust you. Now let's explore those. That's what Zig did in 1977, and I still remember it to this day.
And it could still be applied today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now think about that. 1977? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That was before most of our listeners were born. That was before you were born.
Including me.
You know? Yeah. I was born back at the beginning of recorded human history, 1946. So when I was born, they were still thinking about riding horses. No, I'm joking.
I know. I'm
It
visualizing
was a long time ago. It was way before the internet and cell phones and email and most of the things we're familiar with today. And nobody had computers, of course. But the things that are relevant to me today are the same things that are relevant to millennials and to kids today.
Yeah.
I may not use Snapchat, but I'm very active in texting and using Instagram and
Twitter.
LinkedIn,
You're active on Twitter
Facebook,
too.
and Twitter, yeah.
You're very active on social media. That's actually pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a vehicle. And, I have people that say, well, I don't do email.
Yeah.
Say, well, I don't do telephone. What? And I said, no, I was just pointing out that it's only a tool.
Right. And
you don't do email, you don't do Facebook, you don't do Snapchat or whatever. You use it. It's like a pencil. I want to write and I choose not to do pencils or pens. Hello?
It's a good point, good way to put it, because in reality, if you're going to stand up and speak, or if you want to be a motivational speaker, or if you just want to be an influencer in the world, expect to use some of these tools, because it's hard now. Actually, these tools have made it so much easier for you to interact with people from around the world. I don't know how many people I've already started interacting with just from starting this podcast alone, and I only launched it in January. So the fact that I'm interacting with people all around the world, to me, is just fascinating, because back in the days, this was not even a possibility, you know.
You look at podcasts and webinars and all the online things we do. I remember setting goals to reduce the use of paper and go digital with more things. And it was like 3 or 4 years before the technology caught up to where I could do that. And then one day I had all my files, 6 great big cabinets, 5-drawer cabinets filled with 30 plus years of accumulated business records and archives. I had them all scanned and then shredded.
Wow.
Yeah, it cost a few $1,000s, and it was an emotional moment parting with the physical documents, but put them all into a group of digital files, and I found that the number of times I refer to those files is almost nothing.
Wow. So
letting go was the challenge, not being without, because every day I'm creating something new or discovering something new or sharing something that's fairly recent, but rarely is it something way from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, thinking about event planners, I've had people say when it comes to presentations, well, I hate PowerPoint. I said, really? Do you hate audio or do you hate video? Well, no, of course not. Those are just ways of, exactly. Just like PowerPoint, it's just a way to communicate. It's not instead of making sense. It's not instead of having good delivery. It's a tool to illustrate a point. If a person says, come here, you got to see this, look, and they open up photos on their iPhone and they show you a picture of their kids, That's PowerPoint.
Yeah, you're right.
Same thing. It's not the name or the brand or the whatever, Keynote, PowerPoint, etc. It's simply a tool that when used poorly sucks. And when
Exactly.
used correctly is really cool.
That's exactly what I was going to point out. I was going to be like, we have these tools, but are we actually using them effectively?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And you
there
never
for
use
us.
them instead of yourself. You
Right.
use them to enhance yourself.
Exactly. It should not be the one that leads. You should ultimately lead. It's your tool. It's the thing to
Yeah.
help guide you, not to become the thing, to be the ultimate source.
As a friend of mine says, Zachary.
Zachary.
You're Zachary Wright.
I like that.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to know, I know you wrote a book, The Acorn Principle, and I've just recently started reading that, and a quote caught my attention. I'm just going to say this for our listeners. The quote is, "The great achievers of our time are not typically people who are fantastically intelligent, amazingly charming, and cunningly manipulative. Most big successes are people who simply apply their natural talents and abilities in intelligent ways." Can you share a little bit about that quote, and as well as just talk briefly about your book?
You bet. Well, the whole book was written as a guided tour of you.
Uh-huh.
So I spent 9 years with a group of researchers, psychological researchers, and came up with what became the book, The Acorn Principle. And the Acorn Principle, it relates to the metaphor of an acorn, which is the seed of an oak tree. But it's also, one acorn is the beginning of a forest of 100,000 oak trees.
That's true.
It just takes time to get there. So every person is the beginning of something. And they're also the result of something. So an acorn came from a tree, and it's going to a tree, or it's going to become squirrel food or something.
Squirrel.
Right. For fertilizer. But the acorn holds within it not only one oak, but a whole future of oaks.
Wow.
And the same thing's true for a person. You are the seed of potential of millions of possibilities. Now, what do you do with that? Well, I believe if you and I, Nosheen, if you and I were creating the world and we created human beings, so we are the creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are God, and we're debating among ourselves. In this case, it's a dual God, a partnership, God to the second power. So we are deciding, how are we going to wire humans so that all the needs of Earth can be met? Well, let's give them different mixes of talents. All of them need some fundamental talents just to get through life. But let's make some of them really brilliant with architecture, and some of them really good with math, and some of them really good with performance, and some of them really good nurturers and healers and things. And let's do that. Okay, yeah, but how are we going to get them to do that? Well, item 1, make it pleasurable when they do it. And item 2, make it come easily to them. Come easily to them. Mm-hmm. So how do you know what you're naturally good at? Well, you start trying all the things that you could potentially be good at or bad at. And the ones that you do well, and the ones that seem just almost like a no-brainer to you, you ought to write that down, because that's a path you can pursue where your maximum energy and strength and value is going to be applied to it with the minimum of effort and difficulty. So I think we ought to spend a lifetime exploring what makes us who we are and figuring out how to design our life so we get to be our real self all day, every day, as long as we live. Mm-hmm. So you start out at first, you're limited by needing money and not having much power or authority. So you take whatever job you can take and you make do. But while you're there, you need to be exploring what your potential is and what your interests and strengths and loves are, and then start making life choices and career choices that get you to do more and more of what you're good at, less and less of what you're not good at, because they make tools and other people for what you're not good at.
It's like almost finding your way. There's a path.
Yeah.
Everyone has their path. It's how you...
And their path's pretty wide, too.
Yeah.
Because I could be a professional performer, I
Yeah.
could play and sing, play guitar and sing, which I do as a part-time job.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I could do that all day, every day, and make a career of it and love every minute.
Yeah.
But I also love what I do as a speaker, and that has some ancillary applications like coaching and consulting and such, training. Those make sense too. And I enjoy event planning,
Yeah.
and that's also compatible with what I do. But if building houses was my strength, then I would be on the wrong path right now.
Mm-hmm. And almost what you enjoy doing as well. Because I think like you have your natural talent. I realized that, I was working and working on a 9-to-5 job. And I started almost coming to a point where I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this world. I think there's something else out there for me. I want to
Yeah.
be able to use my natural talents. I want to be able to find my path. I want to be able to struggle. I want to be able to find the path that is
There
right
you
for
go.
me,
Well,
And like
you
you
just
said,
said
pick up
something
skills.
important. You said, I want to be able to struggle. That most people want to avoid the struggle, and that's the difference between them and you.
Yeah. Well, that's good to
Yeah.
know. I
Mhm.
guess I didn't catch that.
And I think life's too long, life's too short to spend much time working for jerks. So
Yeah.
if the person you're working for is an idiot or an abrasive jerk, then start planning your exit or something. Make a change, because you can tolerate that for a while as a coping strategy, as a career step. But if that becomes the reality you embrace, then that's the way your life's going to be.
I think you
So
just read
yeah.
my life.
Well, I wrote down something that another person said one time that I thought pretty much sums it up. He said, my life philosophy from today forward is NMA. No more assholes.
No more assholes. Exactly. I want to, I'm not even lying when I say this. I want to be able to, I was like, I can't handle this anymore. I try to be a nice person. I try to do I try to be a good, person out there, give back
Yeah.
however much I can. But then when I have to work with people I don't want to work with, why do I continue to move forward in that direction? Why do I let
Yeah.
myself go there?
Yeah.
I said, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm
Never
stopping it.
reinforce a bad path.
Exactly.
That's it's kind of like if you really, really like chocolate, don't buy 50 pounds of chocolate. Buy a chocolate piece,
Exactly.
because chocolate's fun, but it's not a good lifestyle.
You're absolutely right.
And
You're,
Cheetos, my wife and I like
I
Cheetos,
love
but
Cheetos.
but I ain't buying a big jumbo bag of Cheetos. I'll put a little serving of Cheetos, and that way it's used up, and I've got to make a second bad decision if I want the next one.
Make sure you don't buy that second bag.
Right.
Exactly. I had to tell myself, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I want a career where I actually enjoy working with the people I work with. I want to be able to, if I start my own business, I want to be able to say, hey, I want customers that love me back. I want to be able to work with people who are like-minded. I want to be able to have that opportunity to interact with people I've never met with before and would have never met if I didn't leave my job.
Yeah.
I,
Let me tell you a quick one, because you and I are wired very similarly.
yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I was working as a bill collector. I had to repossess cars and log trucks in the hills of northern Arkansas in the Ozark Mountains.
That's tough.
And I hated my job, hated it. But it paid well, and I had a company car and an expense account, and I was 20-something years old, and I was able to have a pretty decent lifestyle on the weekends. But during the week, I had to do all this calling on people that never wanted to see me. Literally, nobody I called on ever wanted to see me.
Yeah.
And after 2 years of that, I went to my boss and I said, I'm quitting. And he said, where are you going? I said, I don't know. He said, really? You're going to leave General Motors? I was working for GMAC.
Wow.
He said, you're going to leave General Motors and you've got nothing in mind. And I said, yeah, I do. I want to do things that involve people who want to see me, not people who want to avoid me. So I'm sorry, but I'm done with the bill collector thing. I think I'm going to go part-time sell motorcycles while I figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And then I went to
Exactly.
work in nightclubs playing guitar and singing. And of course, everybody wanted to see me.
Yeah.
And the better I got, the more people wanted to see me. And then I got married and took a job selling mutual funds and life insurance. And that was, some wanted to see me, some didn't. And then I found my path a few years later into the field of training and development, and I've been there ever since.
See, I think that's great. Like you, then that ultimately builds your confidence too when you think about it. I think for, yeah, for me,
Without pain and fear and difficulty, there is no confidence built.
exactly. I like that. And it makes so much more sense. I think it's just things that you learn in life, how you have to deal with all of the things, you know. I don't want to run into the same people that don't like seeing me, you know, or I don't want to
But
interact with.
that's so important to go through those passages from time to
Exactly.
time, because if a parent says to a child, "Come here, I want your muscles to be bigger, so I'm going to lift your weights."
It teaches you. You don't want to do that.
I'm going to lift your weights and your muscles are going to get big. No, I don't think so. I think maybe my muscles would,
Mm-hmm.
So removing difficulties is good if you're removing dangers and threats and things like that. But if you're just removing the struggle, you are harming the person, not
You're
helping
right.
them.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. You have to deal with the struggles. I think that ultimately also leads to the passion. The passion
Mhm.
doesn't come unless you've experienced some sort of struggle with it. You know, like why
Totally
we
right. Yeah.
started our own business. You know, we were struggling. We were saying that, hey, there's nothing out there like this. We saw, like, my husband's sister was struggling with something. And to watch her go through all of that and then be a part of that process, I was like, no, no way. We're going to have to make a change in this. You're capable of making a change in this, you know, and we're going to do it regardless of what we have to hit. We'll deal with whatever comes our way and we'll make it
Yep.
work, you know?
That's right. Well, my sister, she passed away a few years ago, but she
So,
had a habit of feeding her weaknesses. She
yeah.
would hang out with people that were enablers, and so she had a friend who was just negative Nancy. I mean, if you show her a sunrise, she'd say, "Yeah, but now part of the day's gone." You give her a gift, and she says it's probably going to break, or I'll just
Ah,
get it, or whatever. But she always found the hole, never found the donut.
yeah.
And I told my sister, I said, don't bring her around here anymore. She said, well, wait a minute. She's my friend. If you accept me, you accept my friends. I said, no, that's not how it works. I accept you unconditionally for all of eternity. You're my sister. I love you. But I
Yeah.
don't have to have negative people in my life who every time they come in, they bring a cloud into the house with them.
Yeah.
And so she's no longer welcome here, and you're welcome here 24/7. I'll even give you a key.
I think that's so true. I'm actually in that process right now where I'm saying I'm trying to remove all of the negative energy. You know,
Hmm.
I don't need to surround myself with people who have a pessimistic view on life. You know, because personally I don't need it myself. You know, I need to be
Yeah.
able to
And you
have.
don't have to kick them out. You
Yeah, I don't have to
just
kick them out.
diminish the amount of time you spend with them.
Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
limiting it, you know, and,
Yeah.
and to a certain degree. Like, I
Mm.
know, like, obviously, if they're family or if they're close friends, I'm not going to do that. But there's, to some extent, it's impacting me. It's impacting my life, you know. The more positive influence I have around me, the more positive I become, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think
Yeah.
that changes who I am, my inner, you know, like almost like my inner self.
Hmm.
And being able to change that is what drives me to improve myself. It improves everything around me, and I can see the change. You know, I want to become better. I want to
Yeah.
improve my life.
Yep. You're speaking truth. You really are.
So on that note, I wanted to ask you also, like, if you know, especially for our listeners out there, do you have any tips on improving confidence while you're speaking in front of the public? Because I know for me, you know, I was mentioning this earlier, I have anxiety issues. I'm
Hmm.
working on that. Of course, it's a personal thing, but I now am like more open about it, and am not like in denial of it. But when I stand
Yeah.
up on stage, I stop and I look at the audience and I don't know how to react. And I get, you know, like the feeling, my stomach sinking and like just
Well, one of the
nervousness.
things, yeah, I've been there time and time again. One of the things is ask, or before you get up there, have a couple of questions written down that you could ask if you lose your way,
Yeah.
and make them questions that you would ask the audience about how your subject matters or is meaningful to them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're talking about the annual event and you want everybody to want to go sign up for the big annual event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got your presentation put together and you're excited, but you're scared. And you get up there and you say, good morning, and nobody says anything. And you get more nervous.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm going to give you an overview of the annual event, and I think you're going to get pretty excited about it. And you start talking about the positive things about the annual event, and you're not getting any feedback. And you say, you go to one of your questions, and let's say it's this one. How many of you have attended more than one of this organization's annual events? And you raise your hand to indicate you want them to raise theirs.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then you say, could I see your hands? And so a few more of them raise their hands. And then you ask, by the way, how many of you weren't going to raise your hands no matter what I had asked? And you raise your hand again. And then you have a laugh with them, and that takes the nervousness away a little bit.
I like
and
that
then you
idea.
say, let's go back to the annual event. There are 4 major things that are going to take place. 1 is our keynotes. 2 is our breakout sessions. 3 is our excursions, because we're going to see the city. And 4 is the workshops where you have special one-to-one attention from the experts at the event. I'm going to walk you through each one of these. And then you just start describing the event to the people and forget about you and forget about whether you're speaking or not. Just make sure they understand what the possibilities are. So at the end, they're saying, hey, where do I sign up?
Yeah. It's almost like pacifying or like putting them at ease, and putting yourself at ease at the same time.
Yeah.
Keeping them, making
And
sure.
also it helps to have your introducer, if there is an introducer, do the hardware work for you. Thanks everybody. Hey, program's begun. So thank you for holding it down, and please turn off your cell phones.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I like to avoid is the how do I describe it? The illogic of saying, before we begin, I have a few announcements. Well, if you say something, you've begun. So you can't do anything before you begin after you begin. So it's a non sequitur, and their brain doesn't make sense. So a better way to say that is, as we begin, I have a few announcements.
Okay, I like that.
And then that way it's not illogical. That way it just makes sense. As we begin, here's some important things you need to know. Exits are here, and those lead to the outside. These other 2 exits lead to inner hallways. So if we have to evacuate the room for some reason, don't use these, use those. Mm-hmm. Second, please turn off your cell phones now. And if your neighbor is texting, nudge them. Let's practice that, everybody. Okay, prepare to nudge. Nudge. Thank you. All right. Now our first speaker is Nosheen. She's going to be talking to you about our annual event. Let's welcome Nosheen.
Yeah.
And see, now I was just making that up, but that's a very realistic makeup from 3,100 events that I've been the presenter at.
Yeah. And I think that also helps because many times folks zone out, when they hear before we begin, they're like, oh, it hasn't started yet. Get back to whatever you're doing, Right. So it reminds them it has already started. This is the starting point. Since we're starting, might as well do these things.
And housekeeping announcements are things related to cleaning. So don't call them housekeeping. If you're on page 6 of your packet, there's a blank, do X and Y. That's not a housekeeping announcement. That's a technique, and a tool.
Yeah.
Housekeeping announcement is, please pick up the trash below your chair, throw it in the waste bins over on the right-hand side of the room, and dust on your way there.
I've seen that, though. Like when they say housekeeping announcements or housekeeping rules, it always gives me a little, I don't know. I always feel strange whenever I see that, and it
Me
bores
too.
me immediately. You know, I'm like,
Totally.
oh,
And
time to go to bed,
that
you know?
that's universal. So if you want to lose your audience, say before we begin, I have a few housekeeping announcements, which means disconnect, look at your cell phone, and ignore me.
Lose
Same
focus
thing.
entirely.
Yeah, lose focus entirely, and I'll have someone else try and get your attention back.
So I know in the process you shared some of the common problems that event organizers and speakers deal with. Do you have anything else on how they can even handle them better, or any other problems? Because I know you've hosted a crazy amount of just events.
One of the programs I did was meeting room disasters I have known,
Ah,
and it was how to handle problems like the room catches on fire, or the building you're in.
oh
And I've had that
man.
happen, and I've had to evacuate 700 people on a snowy winter day from 3 levels below the street in a convention hotel in Washington, D.C., twice
Wow.
in the same day. Um, I've also had a person with a medical emergency in the meeting when I was addressing 600 people at a banquet one time, and I had to make sure that someone got there and took care of them. And the audience didn't completely lose focus as a result of that. I've had people before me mention the death of the most beloved founder of the group,
Oh.
and then introduce me.
Oh no.
Yeah. How do you follow that? So, and what I did was I got on stage and I said, I am so sorry to hear the loss of your founder. I said, could I ask that all of us just take a moment,
That's a nice transition.
and just have a moment of silence and think about him or her and send some good energy that way. And
Yeah.
then I pause with them respectfully. And then I say, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I've got a punctuation point. Thank you for that. And then I step to a different spot on stage, a foot or two away from where I was, just to indicate further that there's a change taking place. And I say, now let me ask you a question. And I go immediately into my presentation mode and forget about what we just did.
Yeah.
But if I didn't do what we just did, they would still be carrying that feeling forward.
And they would lose that. They would be disconnected to
Yeah.
you.
I had an occasion in Michigan where I was addressing a large banquet of hundreds of people, and a big drunken lumberjack looking guy stumbled into the room and challenged us all to a fight.
Oh my God.
And, when you think about it, when a problem comes up in a meeting, if you've got the microphone, you're in charge.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're the lowest person on the totem pole, you're in charge.
Everyone
If
looks
the
to you.
president and founder and primary stockholder is in the room, you're still in charge because you've got the mic. You're the only one that can save lives.
Why is that? That's so true, though, because I know if I'm sitting in the audience, I would look to the speaker and be like, what do we do
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. And in this case, I said, I didn't know what to do, but thank heavens I thought of the right thing. This guy's stumbling around and he's saying, and he's yelling at everybody, and he's big. And so I looked at him and I thought about what I was going to do. And then finally I said, sir. And he looked around to see where the sound was coming from, and it was coming through the loudspeakers. And I said, up here on stage. And he looked at me across the room and squinted. And I waved my hand and he said, what? And I said, were you talking to me? He said, I'm talking to all of you. And then he yelled out his challenge again. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, I need 8 large volunteers. Would you please stand? 8 large volunteers, would you please stand? I said that 3 times.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 big guys stood up. And I said, all right, we've got 3. I need 5 more. 4, 5, okay, 6. I need 2 more. Thank you. 7, 8. Great. Gentlemen, please stand. Remain standing. Now, would all 8 of you face this gentleman and walk toward him and help him find the exit? So he's got 8 big men who just stood up in the room and they're headed toward him. He's drunk. He's not using logic. He's reacting at the core of his brain cortex out of animal instinct. What's he going to do? There's only one option. Run.
Yeah.
So he stumbled his way out the door, and they went out the door too and found a security guard who handcuffed him and had him hauled away.
And it's so interesting because, when people look to you for that answer and then they
Yeah.
respond, how you handle that situation. Let's say the situation is not even that big of a deal at the moment, but oftentimes I see when a famous celebrity or someone that's on stage, it's how did they handle such a situation? That's the social media buzz,
Yeah.
I'm like, what about the actual situation? Why don't we talk about that? Why are we so involved in how did so-and-so handle the situation? They might not be the expert in handling such situations, but just
Precisely. And most people aren't.
yeah.
But that's the thing for the event planners is they need to remember, first off, your introducers have almost no experience introducing speakers. Give them a script and make it short, right?
Absolutely.
So it's why should this speaker be addressing this group at this time on this topic? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Nosheen is our speaker today. She has 5 years experience in this. She is here today to teach us how to 1, 2, 3, and let's welcome her.
Right.
Done, right? And next thing is none of your presenters probably have skill or experience handling emergencies.
Yeah.
So be prepared in the event of an emergency to step onto the stage, take the microphone, and give directions.
Absolutely.
Plus, if you don't know that most of the exits go to an inner hallway instead of an outdoor exit, then you're going to guide people into a smoke-filled corridor, which may be their doom.
Yeah.
So check out your rooms in advance, just like the fire department would if they were there.
And for listeners out there, we actually have an upcoming podcast, and we have a law enforcement officer coming in, and she has I think over 15 years of experience. So she's going to talk about a little bit about this too. It's just, interesting though, because, ultimately it falls on the event organizer or the person who's standing up there. You're absolutely right. Even though, you may have a security guard or you may have security outside or inside, it still falls on you. People are looking to you for answers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
by the way,
the
I've got a
challenge.
resource for you.
Oh, yes, please.
Her name is Nancy Hightshoe, Hightshoe. She's in St. Louis, and you can find her on the web. Nancy used to be a beat cop, walking a beat, and arrested a number of violent criminals over the years. And then she started her own career teaching personal safety.
Oh,
and
wow.
talk about a great thing for events and event planners. So Nancy, she can do a podcast or she could even be a speaker, but she's a good resource on the subject of how do people keep themselves and the folks at their events safe. What do you look for, and what can you do that doesn't involve a bunch of money or expertise?
Awesome. We'll definitely reach out to her. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You bet.
And I wanted to ask you a few additional questions. I know you shared your recently published book. The title again is "You Are the Speaker," and you said it's in Mandarin and in English, but it's going to be published a year from now in the States. Okay.
Yeah, it will be out in English.
Awesome.
My most recent book is the Self-Motivation Handbook.
Okay.
And that's also in Mandarin right now, but it's in English most of all. And you can go to selfmotivationhandbook.com or cathcart.com to find out about that and read part of the book for free and such. I've also got lots and lots of other resources like the Acorn Principle, which is on Amazon and all the other places. Most of my books are on Amazon.
Awesome. Okay, and I'll share those links with our listeners as well on our site included. Do you have any other upcoming events that you would like to share with our listeners as well?
I'd like them to all go with me to China next time. I'm going back at the end of May. That's going to be a hoot.
I would love to join.
I'll tell you what, there were 2,500 people in my audience at this recent one, and they were just screaming and cheering, and it was like being a rock star.
Wow.
I took 700 plus individual photographs with people.
Oh, my goodness.
The most common sound I heard in the whole time I was in China, "Can I do picture?"
Everybody wants a picture.
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that's
and
fantastic.
they bought a couple thousand copies of my latest book.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Lord. Thank you, world.
Yeah.
Thank you, China. Yeah.
That is so cool. And knowing that you're going right back. So that's also very cool.
And I do most of my work in the United States, of course. So I'm constantly, doing convention keynotes or consulting work, personal coaching, and that kind of thing. And that's all Cathcart.com. So it's easy to find me.
Yeah.
Actually, it's easy to find me on all social media, as you've pointed out previously.
You're pretty active, so that helps.
I am. Yep.
And for our listeners too, again, I'll share those links with you on our site, and as well as just anywhere else too, through our resources page as well as on our site. Do you also have any resources? I guess you shared some of them already, but I just wanted to double check with you if you have any additional resources you can share with our members related to any of the topics you talked about or anything that's coming up.
I have audio CD, actually it's DVD, DVDs and CDs combined in an album, and it's called Confident Communication. And it is the source from which I wrote the book, You Are the Speaker. It's 53 short video lessons on how to be a good speaker, followed by 4 audio CDs, each of which has an extended lesson on leading meetings effectively, leading board meetings, planning retreats, presentations, conventions, etc.
And is that also available on your site?
Yeah, Cathcart.com. Just go to the shop or the store and look there.
Awesome. And again, users, he also has all of his books on Amazon. You can also find it on Cathcart.com. I wanted to just let you know it has been an absolute honor to have you on this podcast. It really means a lot to us. And just wanted to say thank you again so much for taking the time out for doing this for us. And it's just been fantastic to get to know you and learn a little bit, just a glimpse on your life, just to see how far you've made it and how you've had to overcome your challenges inspires the rest of us to be able to know that we can do it too. That there is a chance.
You're absolutely correct. And I don't mean that motivationally. I mean that as an observation of fact. What you said to me in the early part of this podcast tells me you are the kind of person who will absolutely succeed regardless what the world hits you with. And I congratulate you on that. And you've got it made.
If you would have seen our room, my husband just patted me on the back. He's like, good job. So it really does. It does help. And, hopefully with time, it's just a process. There will be challenges. There will be struggles.
Both of you stay in touch with me.
We absolutely will.
Yeah. I want to watch the two of you succeed.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot to us. It really does. And we would love to have you on again. I know you have a lot of background, and I'm sure this was just not enough to cover everything, but we would love to have you on again, and we'd love to share, everything that you do with our listeners to inspire them along the way.
My pleasure.
So again, thank you so much, and thank you, listeners, for joining as well. Although the event industry includes a lot of stressful work and late meetings or late events, just remember that every event you help to bring to life creates memories of a lifetime for many people out there. Did you love this episode of Plantastic Events? We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. Each week, we'll give a shout out to the Reviewer of the Week. Also, don't forget, we have resources available at stewjap.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time. Goodbye. Produced by stewjap.com. Music by Justin Mahar.